The Kepler void was a dark region of space between star systems where nothing lived and nothing grew. It was the perfect place for the combat trials because any ships destroyed here would not threaten nearby planets. The Galactic Confederation had chosen this place to watch the humans die. Admiral So Min Yu stood on the bridge of her flagship, Soul's Hammer, as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The ship was 3 kilometers long and looked like a metal mountain covered in weapons. Its hull was made from the strongest steel Earth could produce, welded together by people who had learned to build things that could survive anything. Around her, the crew worked quietly at their stations. These were not the panicked actions of desperate people facing certain death. Instead, every human moved with calm purpose, like they had practiced this moment 1,000 times. "Enemy ships detected," reported Lieutenant Yu Jin Lee from her sensor station. "One large vessel approaching from the galactic north. It's broadcasting Vorthak identification codes." So Min smiled. The Vorthak Empire had sent their prize warship, the World Render, to face humanity's first champion. The alien vessel was beautiful, in the way that predators were beautiful, sleek, deadly, and confident in its power. "Captain Jinwoo Park, are you ready?" So Min asked through the communication system. "Ready and eager, Admiral," came Jinwoo's voice from the Soul's Hammer's command center. "My crew has been waiting 3 years for this moment." The World Render was twice as long as the human ship and covered in smooth, flowing armor that seemed to bend light around it. Strange symbols glowed along its hull, and energy weapons that could tear apart matter itself waited at hundreds of weapon points. The ship moved through space like a giant sea creature, graceful and terrible. On the bridge of the World Render, Commander Zethkar studied the human vessel through his tactical displays. The alien's scaled face showed disgust and amusement as he looked at the crude human ship. "Look at this primitive thing," Zethkar hissed to his officers. "It looks like they welded scrap metal together in their backyard. Our reality weapons will tear it apart in seconds." His weapons officer, a smaller Vorthak with bright red scales, checked his instruments. "Sir, I'm reading strange energy signatures. From the human vessel, their power output is much higher than expected. Probably just their engines working too hard to keep that flying junk pile moving." Zethkar laughed. "Begin the attack. Use the reality distortion cannon. Let's show these humans what real weapons can do." Across the void, both fleets of alien observers watched through their sensors. Ships from dozens of species had come to witness humanity's destruction. They expected to see the human vessel destroyed in the first few minutes, maybe even the first few seconds. The World Render fired first. A beam of pure energy that could bend the laws of physics struck the Soul's Hammer directly in the center. This was a weapon that could make matter forget how to exist, that could turn solid metal into empty space. The beam hit the human ship and spread across its hull like water hitting a rock. For a moment, the entire vessel was covered in swirling energy that made the space around it twist and bend. The alien observers leaned forward, expecting to see the human ship dissolve into nothing. Instead, the Soul's Hammer emerged from the energy cloud completely undamaged. Its thick armor had absorbed the reality weapon like it was nothing more dangerous than sunlight. "Impossible," whispered Zethkar. "Nothing can survive a direct hit from reality distortion weapons." Jinwoo's voice came across the communication, channels calm and amused. "Is that all you've got? Our turn." The Soul's Hammer turned to face the World Render, and its real weapons became visible for the first time. Along the human ship's hull, massive doors opened to reveal railgun barrels that looked like metal tunnels. These were not energy weapons or reality benders. They were something much simpler and much more frightening. "Firing kinetic penetrators," Jinwoo announced. "Target the enemy's main hull. Full spread." The railguns fired with flashes of electromagnetic energy. What they shot were simple pieces of tungsten metal, each one the size of a telephone pole. But these metal rods were moving at 30% of the speed of light, faster than anything the aliens had ever seen in combat. The World Render's shields were designed to stop energy weapons and exotic matter attacks. They were not designed to stop solid objects moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rods passed through the alien shields, like they weren't there at all. The first rod hit the World Render near its command section. The impact released more energy than a nuclear bomb, tearing a hole through the alien ship from front to back. The second rod hit the weapon systems, destroying half the ship's firepower in a single blow. The third and fourth rods hit the engine section, and suddenly the beautiful alien vessel was tumbling helplessly through space. "Hull breach on all decks," reported the World Render's damage control officer, his voice filled with panic. "We've lost main power. Weapons are offline. The humans have crippled us." Zethkar stared at his displays in shock. In less than 1 minute, the pride of the Vorthak fleet had been reduced to a floating wreck. The humans had done it with weapons so simple that they were almost insulting, just pieces of metal thrown very, very fast. "How?" Zethkar whispered. "How did they penetrate our shields?" Communications officer Eugene Lee was monitoring alien transmissions when she started to laugh. "Admiral, you need to hear this. The aliens are trying to figure out how we got through their shields." So Min raised an eyebrow. "And?" "They don't understand kinetic weapons, ma'am. Their shields are designed to stop energy and exotic matter. They never thought about simple physics. What happens when you throw a rock really, really hard?" Across the Kepler void, the alien observer fleets were silent. Species that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years watched their most. Advanced warship get destroyed by what they considered primitive technology. On the bridge of a luminary command ship, beings of pure energy flickered with confusion. "How can solid matter move so fast?" one of them asked. "What kind of engines can accelerate metal to such speeds?" "It's not the engines," replied another. "They're using magnetic fields to launch projectiles. It's so simple, so crude. Why didn't we think of it?" The answer was that they had never needed to. Energy weapons were elegant and efficient. Reality manipulation was sophisticated and powerful. But humans came from a world where throwing rocks had been the first weapon, where every conflict had taught them to hit harder and faster than their enemies. Jinwoo opened a communication channel to the crippled World Render. "Vorthak vessel. This is Captain Park of Earth Defense Force. Do you surrender?" There was a long pause before Zethkar replied, his voice heavy with defeat and confusion. We yield." "How did you do this? Your technology should not be capable of such destruction." "We learned from the best teacher in the universe," Jinwoo replied. "We learned from war. As rescue ships moved to help the World Render's crew, news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy at light speed. The first combat trial was over, and the humans had won so easily that it seemed like a joke. But no one was laughing anymore. On Earth, people gathered around screens to watch the footage of their ship's victory. They cheered and celebrated, but not with surprise. They had always known this day would come. They had always known that when the galaxy finally pushed them too far, they would push back harder than anyone expected. The combat trials had begun, and humanity had drawn first blood. The aliens were starting to realize that they had made a terrible mistake. But it was too late to stop what they had started. The great crystal dome of Nexus Prime stretched high above the assembly hall, its walls glowing with soft blue light. Inside, hundreds of beings from across the galaxy sat in perfect rows, their forms strange and different. Some looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth. Others were made of pure energy that floated in the air. A few had too many arms or eyes that burned like stars. Ambassador Daeho Kim sat in the section marked for humans. He was the only one of his kind in this massive hall. His simple black suit looked plain next to the glowing robes and metal armor worn by the other ambassadors. But Daeho sat straight and calm, his dark eyes watching everything around him. The other beings whispered to each other in languages that sounded like hissing steam or ringing bells. Daeho could understand most of them through his translation device. They were talking about humans, and none of it was good. "The meat creatures are so slow," said a voice that sounded like breaking glass. It came from one of the energy beings called the Luminari. "Their ships move like dying animals," hissed a large reptile with red scales. This was one of the Vorthak, the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Why do we even let them come to our meetings?" asked another voice. Daeho smiled quietly, to himself. He had heard words like these for 3 years now, ever since Earth joined the Galactic Confederation. The aliens thought humans were weak and stupid. They thought Earth was just a small, unimportant world that got lucky when it discovered faster-than-light travel. At the front of the hall, a massive platform began to rise from the floor. On it stood High Chancellor Vexthar, the leader of the Vorthak Empire. His body was covered in dark green scales that looked like metal plates. His yellow eyes were the size of dinner plates, and his mouth was full of teeth like curved knives. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the hall like thunder. "Fellow beings of the Confederation," Vexithar began, "we gather today to discuss a problem that has gone on too long." The hall became quiet. Daeho felt all the alien eyes turning toward him. He kept his face calm and his hands folded in his lap. "For 3 years we have allowed the humans to sit among us," the Chancellor continued. "We hoped they would learn from our wisdom. We hoped they would grow and become worthy of our great confederation. But they have failed us." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Some aliens nodded their heads or made clicking sounds with their mouths. "Their technology is primitive," Vexthar said, his voice growing louder. "Their ships are slow and ugly. Their weapons are weak. Their soldiers are soft. They come from a small, dirty planet that barely knows how to travel between stars." Daeho thought about Earth, his home world. He remembered the blue oceans and white clouds, the great cities that reached toward the sky, and the billions of people who lived there. The aliens called it small and dirty, but Daeho knew they had never really seen Earth. They had never walked through its forests or climbed its mountains. They had never met its people. "The humans add nothing to our great civilization," the Chancellor went on. "They take up space in our councils. They use resources that could go to worthy species. They are a burden we can no longer carry." More voices joined in agreement. Daeho heard the word burden repeated in dozens of different languages. He also heard other words: weak, useless, primitive. One of the energy beings floated closer to the platform. When it spoke, its voice sounded like singing wind. "High Chancellor, what do you suggest we do about this human problem?" Vexithar's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing all of his sharp teeth. "I suggest we give them a choice. Let them prove they deserve to stay in our confederation. Let them show us they are more than just clever animals who learn to fly between stars." "And how would they prove this?" asked another voice. "Combat trials," Vexthar said simply. "The oldest and most honest way to measure worth. Let the humans face our warriors in battle. Let them show us their strength, their skill, their courage. If they can prove themselves worthy, they may stay. If they fail..." He did not need to finish. Everyone in the hall understood. Failure meant exile from all inhabited star systems. It meant being cut off from galactic trade, galactic knowledge, galactic civilization. For a young species like humanity, it would mean slow death in the darkness between stars. The hall erupted in excited chatter. Some aliens seemed pleased with the idea. Others seemed surprised that the humans would even be given a chance. A few looked worried, but Deho could not tell why. Vexithar raised one massive clawed hand for silence. "The humans will have 7 standard galactic cycles to prepare. Then they will face champions from across the Confederation in fair combat. The trials will test their ships, their weapons, their tactics, and their courage." Deho stood up slowly. Every alien in the hall turned to look at him. In that moment, he felt very small and very alone, but he also felt something else building in his chest. It was not fear or anger. It was something that had been waiting for 3 long years. "High Chancellor," Deho said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I accept your challenge." The aliens began to laugh. It was not happy laughter, but the cruel sound that bullies make when they know they will win. Some pointed at Deho with their claws or tentacles. Others made gestures that needed no translation, but Deho was not looking at them anymore. Was thinking about a message he would soon send to Earth. He was thinking about people who were waiting for this exact moment. He was thinking about ships hidden in deep space and weapons that no alien had ever seen. The laughter grew louder, but Deho smiled. It was a small smile, quiet and patient. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that would soon change everything. As the meeting ended and the aliens filed out of the hall, still laughing and talking about the weak humans, Deho activated his communication device. The message he sent was short, just 2 words, but they would echo across the galaxy, in ways the aliens could never imagine. "Finally time," he said into the device, and his smile grew wider. Captain So-Young Park stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the screens that showed Earth's blue surface far below. The message from Ambassador Deho had arrived 3 hours ago, and since then every communication channel had been buzzing with activity. But it was not the panicked activity the galaxy expected from a weak primitive species facing extinction. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Tae-Jin Lee walked in, his boots clicking on the metal floor. His face was serious, but his eyes held the same strange excitement that So-Young felt in her own chest. "The President has given the order," Tae-Jin said quietly. "Operation Unveiling is active. All commanders are standing by." So-Young nodded and turned to her communication officer. "Send the signal to all hidden installations. Use code Delta 7. Tell them it's time to wake up." Across the solar system, messages began to travel at light speed to places the aliens had never noticed. Deep under the sand dunes of the Sahara, desert, massive doors that had been buried for 50 years began to open. In the asteroid belt, rocks that looked natural suddenly split apart to reveal gleaming metal underneath. On the dark side of the moon, hills that had seemed empty for decades started to move. Dr. Min-Ho Choi was already waiting in Research Facility 7 when the alert came through his computer. He had been expecting this day for his entire career. Around him, his team of scientists and engineers stopped their work and looked at the screens showing the message they had all been hoping to see. "Ladies and gentlemen," Min-Ho said with a smile, "it's time to show the galaxy what humans have been building." The research facility was hidden deep inside a mountain in South Korea. To any alien scanner, it looked like solid rock. But inside, humans had been working for decades on projects that would have terrified the Galactic Confederation if they had known about them. Min-Ho walked to a wall covered with blueprints and technical drawings. Each one showed weapons and ships that used ideas no alien had ever thought of. While the galaxy had spent thousands of years perfecting energy weapons and reality-bending technology, humans had gone in a different direction. "Bring up the kinetic systems," Min-Ho told his assistant. "I want to see the current status on all projectile weapons." The screens around the room filled with data. Numbers and charts showed the progress on railguns that could fire metal slugs at incredible speeds. Other displays showed missile systems that used simple chemical explosives, but in ways that would surprise any alien engineer. "Sir," said one of the younger scientists, "the magnetic acceleration cannon is ready for field testing. We can accelerate a tungsten rod to 30% of light speed." Min-Ho nodded approvingly. "Good. What about the close combat systems?" "All powered armor units are operational. The neural interface systems are working perfectly. Our soldiers can move faster and hit harder than anything the aliens have ever faced." On the other side of Earth, Lieutenant Colonel Hye-Jin Nam received her orders while training with her Special Forces unit. The soldiers around her looked like normal humans, but they were anything but normal. Each one had been carefully chosen and enhanced with technology that made them stronger, faster, and more deadly than any alien warrior. "Ghost Battalion," Hye-Jin announced to her troops, "we have our mission. The galaxy wants to test human military capabilities. We're going to give them a demonstration they'll never forget." The soldiers gathered around her were the best Earth had to offer. They had trained in secret for years, learning to fight in zero gravity, in toxic atmospheres, and in conditions that would kill ordinary humans. Their armor was not the sleek, elegant design that aliens preferred. It was thick, angular, and covered with sensors and weapons that could turn a single human into a walking war machine. "What's the enemy situation?" asked Sergeant Jin-Ho Lee, one of Hye-Jin's most experienced soldiers. "They think we're weak," Hye-Jin replied. "They think our technology is primitive. They think we'll panic and beg for mercy." She smiled coldly. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." While the military prepared for war, civilian scientists across Earth were busy with their own tasks. The aliens had been monitoring human communications for years, but they had no idea what they were really hearing. Words like peaceful research and exploration mission had hidden meanings that only humans understood. In orbit around Jupiter, Admiral So Min-yu commanded what looked like a simple mining station. The aliens had scanned it many times and found nothing but equipment for gathering ice and metals. They had no idea that the station was actually a massive weapons platform, disguised to look harmless. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving activation codes from Earth Command. All hidden fleets are reporting ready status." So-Min looked out at the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were probably getting ready to travel to Earth. They expected to find a helpless planet defended by slow, primitive ships. Instead, they would find the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. "Send a message to all commanders," So-Min ordered. "Remind them of Rule 1. Let the enemy think they're winning until it's too late for them to escape." Back on Earth, news reports were already spreading to every human colony and space station. But these were not the desperate broadcasts of a doomed species. Instead, humans everywhere seemed to be celebrating. Children played games with toy spaceships, acting out battles between humans and aliens. Adults gathered in bars and restaurants, raising glasses in toasts to their military. The aliens monitoring these broadcasts were confused. Why weren't the humans afraid? Why weren't they trying to negotiate or surrender? Instead, they seemed excited about the coming fight. Captain Jin-Woo Park, commander of the battleship Soul's Hammer, was in the ship's war room studying tactical displays. His ship was one of dozens hidden throughout the solar system, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Like all human warships, it looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels. It was built like a fortress, covered in thick armor and bristling with weapons. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "long-range sensors are detecting alien scout ships at the edge of the system. They're probably trying to count our defenses." Jin-Woo laughed. "Let them count. They'll only see what we want them to see." He turned to his weapons officer. "How are our kinetic systems?" "All railguns are operational, sir. Missile tubes are loaded and ready. The enemy won't know what hit them." As night fell on Earth, humans across the planet looked up at the stars with anticipation rather than fear. For 3 years, they had endured the aliens' contempt and mockery. They had pretended to be weak and primitive while secretly preparing for this exact moment. The galaxy had declared war on humanity, thinking it would be a quick and easy victory. But humanity was ready to show them the truth. Earth was not a weak planet full of primitive beings. It was a world of warriors who had been waiting for someone foolish enough to challenge them. The fight was coming, and Earth could not wait to begin. The emergency meeting on Nexus Prime lasted for 18 hours. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy argued and shouted at each other in dozens of different languages. The beautiful crystal dome that usually hosted peaceful discussions now echoed with angry voices and the sound of claws scratching on metal tables. High Chancellor Vex Thar stood at the center of the chaos, his yellow eyes burning with rage and something else that he didn't want to admit: fear. The loss of the world render had shocked the entire Confederation. It wasn't just that the humans had won. It was how easily they had won. "This changes nothing," Vex Thar declared, his voice booming over the noise. "One lucky victory does not make the humans worthy of our respect. We will crush them with overwhelming force." A luminary energy being flickered with doubt. "Perhaps we should reconsider. Their weapons technology is more advanced than we thought." "Advanced?" Vexathar laughed, but the sound was forced and hollow. "They throw metal rocks through space. A child could understand their primitive tactics." But even as he spoke, Vexathar knew the truth was more complicated. The human weapons were simple, yes, but they were also terrifyingly effective. His military advisors had spent hours trying to understand how the humans had accelerated solid matter to such incredible speeds. "We will send the combined fleet," Vexthar announced. "Every species will contribute their best warships. We will surround the human home system and end this embarrassment once and for all." The decision was made quickly after that. Pride and fear drove the aliens to escalate far beyond what the original combat trials had required. Within days, the largest military force in galactic history was assembling at the edge of human space. Fleet Admiral Dong-Hyun Kim received the intelligence reports while standing in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters. The facility was built deep under the Rocky Mountains, hidden from any possible alien attack. Around him, hundreds of officers and technicians worked at stations that monitored every part of human space. "How many ships are they bringing?" Dong-Hyun asked his intelligence officer. "Over 3,000 vessels, sir. The Vorthak Empire is contributing 800 battleships. The Luminari Collective has sent 600 energy cruisers. Even the smaller species are sending everything they have." Dong-Hyun nodded calmly. To anyone watching, he seemed completely relaxed, like he was discussing the weather instead of the largest invasion force ever assembled. "And our response?" he asked. "All hidden fleets are moving into position. Operation Deep Strike is ready. To begin. The aliens still have no idea how many ships we actually have." The truth was that humanity had been building warships in secret for over 50 years. Every asteroid mining operation had been a disguise for a shipyard. Every peaceful research station had actually been a military base. Every human colony had been designed from the beginning to serve as a fortress. Commander Ji-Hai Aseo was aboard the battleship Incheon's Fury when the alien fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. Her ship was hidden in the asteroid belt, disguised as a large rock. Around her, dozens of other human vessels waited in similar hiding places. "Enemy fleet is dropping out of faster-than-light travel," reported her sensor officer. "They're forming up in standard attack formation about 10 million kilometers from Earth." Ji-Hai watched the tactical display as red dots representing alien ships appeared on her screens. There were so many of them that they looked like a red cloud covering space. "Send the signal to all hidden units," Ji-Hai ordered. "Let's show our guests what human hospitality looks like." Across the solar system, rocks that had seemed natural for decades suddenly came alive. Asteroids split open to reveal battleships inside. Mining stations shed their peaceful disguises and revealed massive weapons. Even some of the smaller moons around Jupiter and Saturn opened up to launch fleets of human warships. The alien fleet. Commanders watched in growing horror as their sensors detected more and more human vessels. What they had expected to be a quick attack on a lightly defended planet was turning into the largest space battle in galactic history. "How many ships do they have?" demanded Admiral Kreshatar, the Vorthak fleet commander. "We're detecting over 2,000 human vessels, sir," his sensor officer replied, his voice shaking. "And more are appearing every minute." "Impossible. Intelligence reports said the humans only had a few dozen ships." "Intelligence was wrong, sir. Colonel Hyunwoo Jang led the first boarding action of the war. His assault ship, the Busan Hammer, was designed for one purpose: to get close to enemy vessels and put human soldiers inside them. The ship looked like a flying brick covered in armor plates and weapon systems. "Target that Luminari cruiser," Hyunwoo ordered his pilot. "Take us in fast and hard." The Busan Hammer accelerated toward the alien ship at incredible speed. The Luminary vessel tried to defend itself with energy weapons, but the human ship's armor was designed to absorb that kind of attack. The boarding ship slammed into the alien hull like a metal fist, and cutting tools began to tear through the outer armor. "Breach successful," reported the assault team leader. "We're inside their ship." What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human soldiers in powered armor moved through the alien ship like unstoppable machines. Their weapons were simple chemical explosives and metal projectiles, but they were devastatingly effective against aliens who had never learned to fight inside their own ships. The Luminari were beings of pure energy who had never needed to worry about physical combat. When human soldiers appeared in their corridors, shooting solid bullets and throwing explosive grenades, they had no idea how to respond. "They're using chemical explosives inside our ship," one Luminary officer reported in panic. "How do we fight? Solid matter attacks?" "Fall back to the energy core," ordered the ship's captain. "We'll overload it and destroy the ship rather than let them capture it." But even that plan failed. The humans had studied alien ship designs for years. They knew exactly where the important systems were located, and they moved to capture them before the aliens could destroy their own vessel. Captain Yoon-Young Kim commanded a squadron of small, fast ships called meteor strike fighters. These ships were designed for suicide attacks, but with one important difference: the human pilots could escape at the last second using emergency pods. "All units, begin kamikaze runs on the enemy command ships," Yoon-Young ordered. "Remember, we're not actually dying today. We're just making it look like we are." The human fighters accelerated toward the largest alien battleships, their engines burning at maximum power. To the aliens, it looked like the humans had gone insane, throwing away their lives in desperate attacks. But at the last second, the human pilots ejected in armored escape pods while their ships continued on course. The unmanned fighters slammed into alien vessels with the force of small meteors, tearing through hulls and destroying vital systems. "They're sacrificing themselves to damage our ships," reported a Vorthak officer. "What kind of warriors do this?" "The kind that come from a death world," his commander replied grimly. The battle raged for hours across millions of kilometers of space. Everywhere the aliens looked, they found human ships doing things that should have been impossible. Human vessels rammed alien battleships and survived. Human soldiers fought through toxic atmospheres without protective gear. Human weapons that should have been primitive and weak tore through the most advanced defenses in the galaxy. General Youngsoo Nam coordinated the entire battle from his command ship, the Soul's Pride. His tactical displays showed the positions of thousands of ships across the solar system, and he directed them all like pieces on a chessboard. "Phase 2 is complete," reported his operations officer. "Enemy formation is broken. They're trying to retreat." "Don't let them," Youngsoo ordered. "We want survivors, but we want them to understand what happened here. No alien ship leaves this system without knowing that they picked a fight with the wrong species." By the time the battle ended, the combined alien fleet was in ruins. Of the 3,000 ships that had arrived to destroy humanity, less than 500 were still capable of faster-than-light travel. The rest were either destroyed, captured, or drifting helplessly in space. The surviving alien commanders gathered their broken fleets and prepared to face the most humiliating moment in galactic history. They had brought overwhelming force to crush a primitive species, and instead, they had been crushed themselves. As the alien survivors began their long journey home, they carried with them a new understanding of humanity. Earth was not a weak planet full of primitive beings. It was a fortress world inhabited by the most dangerous warriors the galaxy had ever seen. The war was over, but the real changes were just beginning. The Great Hall on Earth was very different from the Crystal Dome on Nexus Prime. Built from simple concrete and steel, it had no fancy decorations or glowing lights. But today it was the most important place in the galaxy. The surviving alien leaders sat in chairs that were too small for their strange bodies, waiting to learn their fate. President Mi-Kyung Lee walked into the hall wearing a simple blue suit. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but every alien in the room could feel the power she carried. Behind her walked Admiral Dong-hyun Kim and the other military leaders who had destroyed the greatest fleet in galactic history. High Chancellor Vexathar sat in the front row, his once proud scales now dull and cracked. His yellow eyes, which had burned with arrogance just weeks ago, now stared at the floor. Beside him sat representatives from dozens of other species, all of them looking like children who had been caught doing something very wrong. "Honored guests," President Lee began, her voice carrying easily through the quiet hall. "Welcome to Earth. I understand this is not the visit you had planned." Some of the aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had come to this system expecting to watch the destruction of humanity. Instead, they had watched their own fleets burn in the darkness of space. Before we discuss the future, the president continued, "I think it's important that you understand what really happened here. You didn't lose this war because of bad luck or poor planning. You lost because you never understood what you were fighting." A holographic display appeared in the center of the hall, showing images of Earth from space. The planet looked peaceful and blue, covered with white clouds and green continents. "You called our world small and primitive," President Lee said. "You were right about one thing. Earth is small. But you were very wrong about primitive." The images changed to show human cities with their tall buildings and busy streets. Then they showed factories where workers built ships and weapons. Finally, they showed the hidden military bases that had been concealed across the solar system. "For 50 years we have been preparing for this day," the president explained. "Not because we wanted war, but because we knew it would come. We studied your species, your technology, your tactics. We learned everything about you while you learned nothing about us." Ambassador Soo-jin Kim stood up from her seat near the back of the hall. She had been one of Earth's diplomats for many years, attending meetings and listening to aliens mock humanity while taking careful notes about everything she heard. Every insult you made, every joke about human weakness, every time you called us primitive, we remembered it all, Soo-jin said. But we also learned from it. You told us exactly what you thought our weaknesses were, which helped us understand your weaknesses. Chief Intelligence Officer Sang-ho Park activated another holographic display. This one showed records of alien communications, ship movements, and military plans that the humans had been secretly monitoring for decades. Every human diplomat was also a spy, Sang-ho revealed. Every trade mission gathered intelligence. Every cultural exchange taught us about alien psychology. We know more about your species than you know about yourselves. The aliens in the hall began to whisper among themselves in their strange languages. Some sounded angry, others frightened. A few seemed impressed despite themselves. Vexthar, finally, raised his head to look at the human leaders. "Why?" he asked, his voice rough and tired. "Why did you hide your true strength? Why pretend to be weak?" President Lee smiled, but it was not a cruel smile. "Because we are not conquerors, Chancellor. We are defenders. We only wanted to be left alone to grow and learn in peace. But we also knew that bullies like you would never allow that. So, you were planning this war from the beginning," accused another alien voice. "No," Admiral Dong-hyun Kim replied firmly. "We were planning to survive the war you were planning. There's a big difference." The Admiral stepped forward and activated a new display showing human military doctrine and training manuals. Everything we built, every weapon we designed, every tactic we developed, it was all defensive, he explained. We never planned to invade your worlds or destroy your civilizations. We just wanted to make sure that when you came for us, you would regret it." President Lee walked closer to the alien representatives. "That brings us to the question of what happens next. Your fleets are broken. Your military power is shattered. By the laws of war, we could demand your complete surrender and the occupation of your home worlds." Fear flickered in many alien eyes. They had seen what human weapons could do to ships. They didn't want to imagine what those same weapons could do to planets. "But we won't do that," the president continued, "because that's not who we are. Instead, we're going to offer you something that your own species never offered to others, a real choice." She gestured to Soo-Jin Kim, who began distributing data tablets to the alien representatives. "Option 1, Soo-Jin explained, is isolation. You can return to your home systems and stay there. Trade with each other, build your own civilizations, live in peace. We won't bother you, and you won't bother us. Option 2 is cooperation. Join the new galactic order that humanity is establishing, but this time it will be based on equality and mutual respect, not the domination of strong species over weak ones." Many aliens looked confused by these choices. They had expected slavery, conquest, or death. The idea of being offered genuine alternatives was something they had never experienced. "What about revenge?" asked a Luminari representative, its energy, form flickering with uncertainty. "We attacked your home world. We tried to destroy your species. Don't you want to punish us?" Admiral Dong-Hyun Kim answered this question. "Revenge is expensive and wasteful. It takes resources that could be used for better things. Besides, the best revenge is showing you that we're better than you ever thought possible." President Lee nodded in agreement. "We've already proven our point. You wanted to test our strength, and now you know. You wanted to see if we deserve to exist, and we've given you our answer. What more do we need to prove?" Over the following days, the alien representatives met with human diplomats to discuss the details of the new galactic order. Some species chose isolation, preferring to rebuild their fleets and nurse their wounded pride in private. Others, surprised by human mercy and impressed by human efficiency, chose to join the new system. The negotiations were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the strong dictating terms to the weak, humans listened to alien concerns and worked to find solutions that benefited everyone. It was a completely new way of thinking for species that had spent thousands of years fighting over resources and territory. Captain So-Young Park, now promoted to Admiral, stood on the observation deck of Luna Base and watched the ships departing Earth. Some carried alien diplomats returning to their homeworlds with news of the new galactic order. Others carried human exploration teams heading out to establish contact with species that had never been part of the old Confederation. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Kepler sector. 3 more species have requested to join the human alliance." So-Young smiled as she watched the stars. "Send them the standard welcome package. Make sure they understand that joining means following our rules. No conquest, no slavery, no treating other species as inferior." "Yes, ma'am." "Admiral, do you think it will work? This new system we're building?" So-Young thought about the question for a moment. "It will work because it has to work. The galaxy tried ruling through fear and strength. That led to nothing but endless wars and suffering. We're going to try something different." She turned away from the window and headed back to the command center. There was still work to do. The old galactic order was gone, destroyed in the fires of human victory. But building something better would take time, patience, and the same kind of careful planning that had won the war. As she walked through the corridors of Luna Base, So Young thought about the message that had started it all, Ambassador Day-Ho's. Simple words, finally time. He had been right. It had been time for the galaxy to learn that humanity was not weak or primitive. It had been time to show the universe what a species could accomplish when they combined intelligence, determination, and the hard-earned wisdom of a world that had taught them to never give up. The fight was over, but the real work was just beginning. And for the first time in galactic history, that work would be guided not by the strongest species, but by the smartest one.